Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to Day 2 of Indian Military Heritage Festival. Today, our first session will focus on man versus machine shaping the future of the Indian defense industry and how India plays a pivotal role in shaping the future of the defense industry amidst the ongoing debate of man versus machine. Now, the nation's commitment to modernizing its armed forces and fostering indigenous defense production is evident. With advancements in artificial intelligence, robotics, and unmanned systems, India is integrating cutting edge technology into its military strategy. Initiatives like the Make in India campaign promote domestic defense manufacturing, reducing dependency on foreign suppliers. By investing in research and development, India is not only bolstering its security, but also positioning itself as a global player in defense innovation, addressing the dynamic challenges of the 21st century. And well, to shed light on this and more, we have an esteemed set of panelists today with us. Let's welcome them on stage. Air Marshal Surat Singh, AVSM, VM, VSM. Let's please welcome him with a huge round of applause, as well as our other panelists, Lieutenant General Vinod G. Khandare, PVSM, AVSM, SM, retired, Principal Advisor to MOD, Retired Lieutenant General Anil Bhatt, PVSM, UYSM, AVSM, SM, VSM, Director General, Indian Space Association, Retired Lieutenant General Dr. Anil Kapoor, AVSM, VSM. And to moderate this session, I'd like to call on stage Lieutenant General Dr. R.S. Panwar, AVSM, SM, VSM. Lieutenant General R.S. Panwar was commissioned into the Indian Army Corps of Signals in 1976. He has commanded 2 logistics formations, an electronic warfare brigade, and an armored division signal regiment, as well as the Military College of Telecommunication Engineering. As a distinguished fellow at the USI, he's presently engaged in evolving strategic thought in the areas of non-kinetic warfare, network-centric operations, and emerging disruptive technologies. Once again, a huge round of applause for all our guests.
Good morning, everyone in the physical audience, as well as whoever is watching virtually. First of all, at the outset, I would like to it's a great privilege to be here as part of the first edition of the Indian Military Heritage Festival, and amongst such eminent panelists, the panel which I'm moderating, and I thank the USI and the entire team for inviting me over here. Now, this theme of man versus machine shaping the future of the defense industry, as has just been brought out, it's a very important theme. And the manner in which we'll go about it is, I'll give my opening remarks. Followed, I'll request the speakers to give their initial views for about 7 to 8 minutes each. And thereafter, I'll have some questions, and we'll also throw the questions open to the audience. So that's how we'll go about it. Right. So let me get on to the actual content of the topic. Now, you must have heard of the Azerbaijan-Armenia conflict, so that it's also known as the Nagorno-Karabakh conflicts. So this conflict and the Ukraine conflicts have amply demonstrated the significant impact of unmanned systems in modern warfare. With increasing autonomy creeping into these systems, the impact is only going to increase with time. And the primary technologies which underpin autonomous weapon systems are artificial intelligence and robotics, and that's how the central theme of this session is. I firmly believe that these 2 technologies are the harbinger of the next revolution in military affairs, and I'm using the word revolution very deliberately. In fact, several experts of great repute have opined that AI in the military domain is going to pose an existential threat to humanity. That's what it is. I suspect that the theme of this session, man versus machine, is partly motivated by these fears. These experts being people like Elon Musk, Stephen Hawking, and things. Now, next please. Now, in these opening remarks, I shall first highlight how AI and robotics are expected to affect warfighting in the coming decades. I shall also attempt to stress the urgent imperative of India, and in particular our armed forces, for transforming our R&D processes into effectively leveraging these technologies if we are to keep pace with our primary and daunting adversary, China. So let me begin by first flashing a list of emerging technologies, which in my assessment should form amongst the top 10, which our armed forces need to prepare for to wage 21st century warfare. The first four listed here, namely lethal autonomous weapon systems, laws, and AI-enabled C4ISR systems, armed UAVs, CRAM. The RAM stands for Counter Rocket Artillery and Missiles, and Counter US Unmanned Aerial Systems, and anti-satellite directed energy weapons. These four are central to today's session. Others include hypersonic missiles, next please, quantum communication, sensing, next generation networks, Internet of Military Things, neuro, bio, and nanotechnology. So these, in my assessment, are the top 10. Now, next please. AI is expected to infuse intelligence into every facet of what we refer to as the OODA loop, the Observe, Orient, Decide, Act loop. AI empowerment will also make non-kinetic capabilities. Next. Next one, please. When I say non-kinetic, we are referring to cyber warfare, electronic warfare, and cognitive operations. So these capabilities will also be made more potent and effective. Now, AI-enabled military applications, next one, can broadly be classified into two categories. One is AI-enabled weapon systems, that is the lethal autonomous weapon systems which we are talking about, and next is the AI decision support, AI-enabled decision support systems. Next one. Now, AI-powered non-kinetic capabilities may be considered as a separate class. I have listed cyber operations here, but they really straddle the first two categories which I have talked about, that is the weapon systems and the decision support systems. We must take cognizance, next slide, of the fact that our primary adversary, China, has taken a clear lead over us towards intelligentization. That's the word which they use, intelligentization of the battle space. And given the billions of orders which it is spending annually on AI, military AI alone, this lead is only likely to worsen with time unless transformative measures are taken to arrest this widening gap. Coming to armed UAVs, next one. The Nagorno-Karabakh conflict and Ukraine conflicts have demonstrated that armed UAVs offer very wide range of capabilities. Even without any or minimal AI empowerment, are transforming warfighting methods. Somebody who's been following the Ukraine conflict will understand that. Now, China's indisputable dominance of the UAV market, except possibly the high-end ones, can significantly alter conflict conditions. AI-enabled UAVs with GPS independent, next slide, with GPS independent guidance would be immune to RF jamming, the type of jamming which we are currently focusing on, and therefore we need to vigorously pursue the development of directed energy weapons, that is laser and hyper microwave weapons, as counter UAV weapons. Directed energy technologies are also best suited for anti-satellite weapons, and we know that China is vigorously pursuing the development of anti-satellite weapons. So much about technologies per se. Now coming to, so far I tried to identify the most important technologies relevant in today's theme. Next one. And more generally, they pertain to the changing nature of warfare, which we as a nation need to develop. While such identification is a good first step, even more important is the lackluster performance of India's R&D ecosystems so far, which lags behind much less powerful states and militaries, a notable example being Israel, amongst others. Now, next one. A scrutiny of past efforts, as well as the ongoing Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative, shows that these are mostly aimed at improving the defense procurement process by incentivizing the industry. That's the focus. While these are welcome steps, there has been no attempt so far, in my assessment, on transforming the defense innovation process as opposed to procurement process. There is an urgent need, therefore, to evolve a strategy which revitalizes our R&D life cycle. Next one. So the existing approach to defense research and innovation, next one. Yeah, that's right. Previous one, please. The existing approach to defense innovation, which I would like to, is something like this. The DRDO continues to be the mainstay of defense research. Yeah. Continues to be mainstay of defense research. The private industry, despite increasing incentives given to them, still fall short of expected performance. Academia is envisaged only as a supporting role to the DRDO and the industry. And the role of the armed forces is limited to floating requirements, monitoring progress and carrying out trials, and the MOD empowers the entire R&D process. So this, in short, is how we go about things now. So next slide. Now the transformative approach to defense innovation, which I would like to propose, is rooted in two core principles. First, shifting the center of gravity of R&D from the DRDO to the armed forces. And two, specialization within the armed forces to levels much higher than what exist as on today. In addition to, we need to evolve a defense innovation strategy as opposed to a defense acquisition and procurement strategy, which are of course in place. And in addition to these two, we need to evolve a defense innovation strategy. Next slide. Now there are several proposed changes to the defense R&D ecosystem, which are listed on the slide, all transformative in character, and some of these may seem to be divorced from reality, such as subordinating the DRDO to the DMA. I can assure that these ideas have been adapted from procedures adopted by leading countries and states and militaries which are leading in defense technologies, and in my opinion are quite viable in India as well. We can have some opinions during the Q&A. Now, while most proposals apply to defense R&D in general, the one which is of direct relevance for today's session is what is listed as a joint artificial intelligence center, specifically focused on adapting of AI technologies, which according to me is the harbinger, AI and robotics, harbinger of the next revolution in military affairs. Now, next slide. Creating structures by themselves will not resuscitate the R&D ecosystem unless certain transformative changes are carried out within the armed forces itself. And these include, first and foremost, a change in mindsets amongst the military hierarchy to be convinced and willing to take over the responsibility of R&D from the DRDO. Now, again, there are various views on this. So, and next, create an ecosystem for participative R&D, participation by people in uniform, by creating a cadre of soldier scientists and rehashing our HRD policies to create the soldier sciences. Firstly, a cue for which can be taken by the Israel's Talpiot program. Just a cue can be taken as to how they go about it and how such a small country has been able to do so well in military technology. And finally, revitalizing our PMOs, both in terms of quality and quantity of our officers posted there. While some of the proposed measures require government approval, the ball in every case needs to be taken by the armed forces. So basically, the approach which I have outlined is introspective in nature. A lot of things have to be done by the industry, DRDO, academia, etc. But the driving force has to be the armed forces. So with those brief and rather, I would say, provocative remarks, I now turn to the eminent panelists to draw from the rich experience and suggest ways forward to achieve our goal of Atmanirbharta and emerging disruptive technologies with specific reference to AI, robotics, and autonomous systems. Now, I'll first turn to Air Marshal Surat Singh, who is the current Director General Air Operations. Okay. He's a crack fighter pilot, having served with MiG-21, MiG-29, and the latest Sukhoi 30 MKI squadrons. And I'm sure by now he's flown at least every fighter plane in the Air Force's inventory. I'm sure that is the case. He's got the unique distinction of having done both staff college and NDC abroad, the former in Australia and the latter in Bangladesh. He's also commanded, relevant to this session, the Integrated Air Command and Control System node, and also the the prestigious Tactical and Air Combat Development Establishment, TACD, and before taking on the current assignment, he was Air Defense Commander in the Eastern Air Command. So over to you, Air Marshal.
Thank you for the introduction, sir. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, my compliments to USI for organizing this event, which is very, very essential to generate the thoughts which will make the future much more brighter and capable for the Indian Armed Forces and for the nation as such. And privileged to be part of the eminent personnel available on the dais as the panelist. Thank you very much, sir. If you look at the news today, every news channel is reporting how many people have died in the present conflict in Israel and Hamas. Very few places you'll ever mention what are the losses in terms of infrastructure or the material. That is the sensitivity of human life. Way back in Vietnam War, if you read any of the articles on that, one phrase or the terminology which will appear in most of them is D3 missions: dull, dangerous, and dirty. And that's when the thought process about saving human lives in a military environment probably started that time. 2001 is the next benchmark, when you had the Global Hawk airborne and operated for over 24 hours. That's the first time that capability came into limelight. The experimentation was on for some time, but first operational exploitation and use was in 2001. Last 10 years have seen a very marked improvement or development of capability in terms of having something which enhances and synergizes the existing conventional capabilities with man in the loop. The man is not missing from there, but the man is available at a different place, and use of AI and use of the new technologies to ensure that the OODA loop continues to remain effective and efficient. That is the thought process when it comes to MUMT. Sir has already covered about RMA when you look at the revolutionization in the military affairs. This is the new tool which is available and going to have a large impact in times to come. Some thoughts and ideas I will generate, rest we will handle in the Q&A session. I will not talk too much about it, but just a few words. What we're looking at in a MUMT, the man-unmanned team, is primarily looking at complementing and collaborative capability development. It is whatever we have today, how do we enhance it with use of this technology with minimal cost, but having the effect what we want from that capability. So the effect-based operations, what the Air Force undertakes and specializes in that, how to enhance the capability. That is the theme when it comes to MUMT concept. The major missions, what you're looking at from this scenario is one is ISR, that is INT, surveillance, and recce, because these are the missions which require large amount of presence at any given time. And when you look at, you can have missions up to 18 hours, 20 hours, 24 hours. Imagine a situation where you have to put the man in the air for that much duration. The amount of training and the amount of number of people required is going to be large. If that can be replaced with a capability which is unmanned and have the man in the loop on the ground or at some other place, that is why ISR is one capability wherein the utilization of this unmanned system with built-in AI is going to come in very, very handy. Saturation of the defenses is another area where these capabilities and technologies will come in very, very handy. Swarm drones of hundreds, imagine launching hundreds of them into an area where you want to saturate a particular radar setup. They go there, some of them armed, some of them unarmed, some with EW capability. some with capability in terms of feeding the ISR back, the BDA missions. These are the areas in which these capabilities will come in very, very handy. Some part of your battlefield air strike and battlefield area interdiction missions can also be undertaken by these capabilities. So this is another area probably we have to look at this. Low-end counter-air is also an area where the unmanned systems will come in very, very handy. Majorly, if you look at this capability, it is ISR related and int gathering, and including LINT scenario. If you read the Chinese thoughts and concepts, primarily there are four main areas in which they are looking at. One is they look at eyes and ears, that is the ISR. They call it fangs, where they want to look at offensive capability of carrying out missions across. Bait, when you look at in that scenario, provide kind of decoy from the actual missions. And fist and foot, that's the capability you're looking at in giving that punch to the enemy at that. These are the four main terms when you look at the Chinese CONOPS in that scenario. In the Indian context, when you look at, we will look at the capability development primarily from the point of view of synergizing the existing. That means you look at a scenario where a manned aircraft is there, and there are 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 along with the manned aircraft. You look at the aircraft may not be able to carry that much of weapons. So you carry these weapons on the unmanned, but control it in the air from there. So you can increase the amount of payload which the aircraft can carry. If you reduce the payload on the aircraft, probably it can remain airborne for a longer time. It can operate at much higher speeds. The drag factor is going to be much lesser. And that is where you can have this payload on the side unmanned systems, which can add on. And the overall capability in terms of delivering the punch and the tonnage on the enemy will multiply that much more. So these are the multiplying effects in the unmanned system. Sir spoke about intelligentization of the warfare. That's where another factor where this technology comes in very, very handy. A lot of information can get gathered, raw data can come down, and the processing will happen on the ground. And that's where the man on the ground will come in handy. The man may or the woman may not be in the system in the air, but on ground, that capability exists. In this, one of the scenarios probably will be utilization in a twin cockpit environment. We have a very large number of Su-30 aircraft, close to 300. So these aircraft, when you have two people available, this is where this MUMTI concept comes in and is very likely to be very effective in that scenario, where you have one person controlling the unmanned systems and one person managing the manned environment and system. So overall, when you look at developing this capability and this scenario, we are looking at having it. One of the example I'll tell you, the swarm drone concept. Air Force undertook the Meher Baba competition about 4 years back, and that capability, which started with a very, very initial phases, have now the industry has gone into about 20 to 30,000 crores within India, and that's the capability which has been developed both for utilization in the HADR scenario in civil environment and also has a military capability. So developing the unmanned systems side by side, the manned system is a way forward in which the Indian industry will have to look up, and we do have a lot of interaction with the Indian industry in developing this concept and moving forward. As Air Force, we have the thoughts available. We have some activities going on in which we are looking at developing this system. So rest we will handle in the Q&A. Thank you very much, sir.
So thank you very much. Most importantly, by giving such a educative and crisp within time talk. So now we will leave the discussions for the Q&A part, and I'll now call upon General Khandare, who's in a very important assignment of principal advisor to the MOD at the moment. And before this, for 3 years, he was the military advisor to the National Security Council Secretariat from 2018 to 21. His last assignment while in uniform was DG Defense Intelligence Agency, which is central to today's intelligence is central to today's session 2. An expert in conventional and CTE operations, information warfare, conflict prevention, and peacekeeping operations, and a keen analyst of international world order and comprehensive national security. So the floor is yours, General Khandare. I look forward to your comments.
Jai Hind to all of you. Today's topic, while it is paraphrased as man versus machine, I do not want to be a dissenter right in the beginning, but I must put my views in context that whenever I look at this topic, I always say man and machine. And that is one part. Second important point I want to mention is it cannot be AI alone. Natural intelligence and artificial intelligence cannot be considered as binary. This or that is not the case. I think both together complementing gives us the best possible solution. The other point is, whose problem is this? Is this only an armed forces problem? No. It's a universal problem, and when we are looking at how we have to proceed with it, it's a whole of nation issue which has to be looked at, because whenever you look at some solution for the armed forces, the industry, and specifically when we are talking about defense industry, it cannot survive unless the solutions are commercially viable. The scale, the cost, everything has to be made commercially viable for the industry. And since there are NCC cadets, a lot of them, I'll try to keep my talk very simple. The most important part for artificial intelligence to come in is the requirement of data. AI is just an engine. It runs on the fuel of data. Let's introspect and let's be honest about it. Are we ready with the data? That is specifically the AI ready data. And the more data you are able to ingest into the AI system, you will get better predictions and you will get better trends. Currently, the entire nation is going through a struggle of getting data, the legacy data, the current data harmonized. It's hard work. It's not a low-hanging fruit. It doesn't appear glamorous. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to get the legacy data in the same form, in the same format, checking the integrity of the data, and thereafter ingesting it into the AI engine, and that's when the transformations happen. Remember the number of years back when China declared the informatization and intelligentization. Prior to that, automation and mechanization, they knew what they were doing. There was a compulsion for them to do it, to get as close as possible technologically to the US, which is the primary adversary they have. And a second challenge was, because of that one-child policy, they were going to face severe manpower crunch. So that's why they went for it. What is our challenge? Our challenge is there is a huge technological differential with China, and we have two identified adversaries, both of a very different kind. So we have to customize our AI usage where it is dealing with the northern borders and where it is dealing with the western borders. And in addition to these identified adversaries, you have potential adversaries also. In statecraft and in geopolitics, what may be possibly a friend could turn a foe. So you cannot be blind and so innocent that you would entrust everything abroad. So that is the reason why the country has gone into the Atmanirbhar mission. And the way it was explained, that maybe there is inadequate emphasis on R&D, I agree with that. It may not be inadequate, but there might be a lack of focus, there might be lack of productivity. And that is where the Ministry of Defense is going in for a study group which is going to suggest what are the changes that are required. That is as far as the DRDO is concerned. But what about the users? When we look at users adapting AI and technology, any change or any reform or any transformation is driven by the user. If the user is quick to grasp, if the user is quick to adapt, if the user is quick to mold, the industry is also energized. Many a time we feel that the process kills the proposal. So AI is one particular form where unless we get our processes streamlined for the transformation and not go for piecemeal changes, there will be a problem. So when General Panwar said that services are busy with trials, there have been changes. I would like to make a mention of innovation particularly has been delinked from indigenization. So if there is an IDEX challenge, what is IDEX challenge? It is basically innovation. The kind of incentive that has been given to people in uniform to innovate and produce it along with somebody that did not exist earlier. So IDEX is one particular scheme that has been brought in, and that includes some limited financing. What exactly is this? This is not the capital goods that we are looking at. These are the revenue or the smaller ones, which may be up to 10 crores or lesser than that. But what happens to bigger projects? So there is a DRDO proposal which is there already and it is working. The TDF, where up to 50 crores is what is used. Can AI work with that? No. The AI will require a whole of nation approach, and what is being done in other ministries will also have to be adopted here. But for that, like I said, get your own data in place. You can't do it at the click of the button, at least not now. The US is going to be ready with all AI solutions by 2027. China has not announced, or at least there's nothing that you can believe on what timeline China gives out. But why is AI required so much? There are certain tasks which are mundane, people get bored and then they neglect, and that's what you see in Israel, what has happened. There are certain tasks which are extremely dangerous. If you do not want the man to be shot down, then obviously you'll need something like an unmanned autonomous system. Why there? You look at civil sector. There are certain seabeds which have been allotted to India. The deep sea mining which has to be done, there is a problem because the unmanned autonomous systems have to go down to a depth which cannot be endured by a human being. So that is where the industry will have to start looking at and see that these kind of autonomous unmanned systems and the kind of sensors and the kind of robotics that are required. Now I mentioned robotics. There are certain mundane tasks and there are certain challenges which even the services are now facing because of the manpower crunch. This is the time to adopt a change. The attitudinal shift has to come right from top. If you do not have manpower to clean your barrel, the 7 people that you are required, and you are looking at only 3 people available, there are solutions available. There are Indian engineers who are coming back from US, investing here, starting their own companies, and giving solutions for a robot for barrel cleaning and also assessing the condition of the barrel, then recording it at one place. So you are impacting on the manpower aspect of artillery, you are also impacting on the documents and records which are maintained by EME. So here, if you start looking at AI solutions, robotic solutions to address the problems which are coming because of the changes which are happening. Ordering a change is the easiest, but managing the change is the most difficult thing. And that is where these solutions have to be looked at. General Panwar mentioned a very good thing that the R&D part, the involvement of the armed forces, I agree fully there, but I don't agree with the system that DRDO has to come under the armed forces. Yesterday, Mr. Amitabh Kant gave very good suggestion. In fact, I do not know how many of you were here to listen to him. He had a very great kind of a thought process, which means absolutely taking away the present model. And he said the research should be actually left to the universities, the way China does it or the way USA does it. That's yet one more model. So these are all aspects which need to be thought of, which we need to be considering continuously. There are certain challenges where we all say AI task force. Where is the human capital? General Panwar mentioned that the human resource policy also needs to be updated and adapted to the kind of changes that we have. The specialist has to come up. The specialist has to cross-pollinate with the research and development. Unless you do that, the user's perspective will always remain alien. And that is one reason why there are so many delays in the trials, because what is made by the scientist or what is designed, it's still not in the made condition, but whatever is designed, and by the time the user gets involved, he says, no, this is not what I want. And this is the change that we need, because Israel does it. In Israel and Korea, there is conscription where everyone has to serve. The moment they leave after 2.5 years or 3 years, they go and join the startups or they go and join the big companies where they give first-hand account of what exactly is required. Same is the case that we'll have to do with data and AI. There are numerous applications of AI or robotics which would be across the board in civil stream also. If you're constructing a road and you need the kind of safety that you have to provide to the road construction people, the same is available for BRO and the same is required by the NHAI. So unless we are able to cross-pollinate and we are able to cross-fertilize each other's programs, we will not reach anywhere. So what does that mean? The present approach of being restricted to your own fraternity will have to change. You will have to get across and see who all are doing what. And today it is very easy. Everything is available on websites. You have to just see what exactly is being done in the other ministry. That's what one point which Prime Minister brought in, where he brought in the aspect of Gati Shakti. Gati Shakti means there are 4 or 5 stakeholders who are doing the similar thing, and it should not be at cross purpose. Here also, in AI and robotics or in data, there are multiple ministries who are going to do it. There are private and public sectors which are going to do it. Unless we get on to this together collaboratively, we will not reach anywhere. When do we start? We are already late. We need to do it as of yesterday. And if we do not do it immediately, then maybe 20 or 30 years later, these same youngsters will be standing here and criticizing our generation for not having achieved and not having left them with a smart system to function. I do not want to dwell on to other issues like space, because General Bhatt would be speaking on that. But new era and new forms of warfare, there is information warfare or influence operations. China is already very clear on the 3 warfare strategy, in which public opinion and psychological operations are one of its integral part, and these operations do not distinguish between the uniformed and the non-uniformed fraternity. Unless we get our AI ready, we will never be able to distinguish between the real news and fake news. And the way we are, because everything has been given to us free, whether it is WhatsApp or Facebook, we are busy just sending messages without identifying the authenticity of that. General Panwar mentioned about the intelligence part. Unless you have a good mix of technical intelligence and human intelligence, you will be taken for a ride by either of the two. You have to take the best out of both, and then you have to ensure that your data is connected to that, and thereafter you move ahead with your AI. The collection of intelligence, the analyzing of that, assessment of that, and thereafter dissemination, everything can come through the digitization process that is already in progress. And in that, technical intelligence would also require space, drones, air, whatever is on the ground, radars, everything possible has to come in. But the interface with human intelligence, if not done, you see what has happened by Hamas. Even a weaker adversary will be able to get the better of you. So I would like to leave it here because of constraints of time, and more of these we will discuss during the Q&A. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you, General Khandare. I reserve my comments for the Q&A part because we are running short of time. So I now turn to General Anil Bhatt, who's the Director General of Indian Space Association. The Indian Space Association, for those who do not know, has been set up recently, and just 2 years back in 2021, to act as a bridge between the private industry and the defense. It's a government, non-profit government institution, and its sole aim is to support collaborative development of the private space industry. The general has commanded a division in the eastern sector, a corps in the northern sector, and he's been to UN missions in Lebanon and also been an instructor in the Commandos Wing, amongst a whole lot of other accomplishments. So over to you, General Bhatt.
Good morning and Jai Hind. Honor for me to speak here at USI's special heritage seminar which has been going on here. And I would talk of what is there, one of the latest things in warfare, and that is space. Go to the next slide. You know, I'll start with what were the early developments in space and how did mankind get along and go into space. It started with the World War II. There were the V2 rockets of Germany which were made in nearly the end of the war. And these were the first time that a ballistic rocket was being sent into space, and it did cause serious damage in Belgium and in UK. Had it come earlier, maybe it would have affected the war otherwise. So what happened was, by the time the war was ending, both USSR and the Allies rushed to Germany to pick up the spoils of war. And one of the spoils of war were these scientists who were working on the V2 rocket. So Werner von Braun, with 120 people, was taken to USA, and he started the space program of the United States of America. While the gentleman Helmut Gotthob, with 500 scientists, was taken by USSR to develop their space activities. And what they did was, the 500 made the first satellite, that is the Sputnik, which went off in 1957. Then the first man in space, which you are all aware, in 1964. And till then, the race was being won by the 500 scientists who were with USSR. And of course, then the man landed on moon and that was done by USA. Then on came the International Space Station in 1998. And then happened the space shuttle accident, which put human space activities on a slight back foot, because 7 to 8 astronauts were lost in one mission, and another mission, space shuttle mission, a few more were lost. But all this happened in the backdrop of strategic rivalry of the Cold War. No weapons were used except ballistic monitoring. It was more of national status. It was more of who was ahead into science, into reaching the space first, but not exactly weaponization or militarization of space had taken place. Next. Now, internationally now, in 2000 is when we say the new space revolution has taken place. And this revolution has been led by 3 enterprising civilians, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and the owner of Virgin Galactic. And they have brought disruption into space technology. What have they brought? They have brought reusable rockets. They have used AI. The satellites have become smaller. And now for communication, previously the satellites were at 36,000 miles, 22,000 miles or 36,000 kilometers from the Earth. They brought them down to 500 to 2,000 kilometers, much closer to the Earth. There's been enhanced commercialization. In fact, today, all of us who are sitting here, from early morning, you would have used space. You have used space when you have used Google to come here. You have used space if you've taken out money from your ATM. You have used space if you have checked the weather. And there are many other usages where you are today taking the help of satellite. So this is the commercialization which is taking place. Traditionally, space was a strategic domain but more and more of it is being now used commercially. There are known spacefaring nations in the world who have a capability of launching a rocket, launching a satellite, are 6 to 7. But there are 92 countries today who own assets in space or use assets in space. 92. So that is how the space race is going, because of the commercialization and of course because of the military use. And in future, what are we talking of? Space tourism, resource mining, mining from asteroids, and of course, space colonies, which Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos talk of. The difference between them is one says, initially we'll go to the moon and then later to the other parts of the world, while the other says, no, we have to go to Mars. But I'm very sure, not in my generation, but all of you sitting here, some of you will be seeing the human being going to Mars and maybe get an opportunity to go there. Next. These are the technology disruptions which have taken place, and I'll just give you a snapshot of it. Please go to the next slide. This is on the left is what the size of a satellite was for communication before, and see the size now. Compare it with the hand of a human being. And it is doing the same thing which 10 years back was on the left, now it is on the right. Go to the next one. This is the Chinese satellite for remote sensing, and this is the Planet satellite for doing the same thing. This is how miniaturization has taken place in space. Next, just click this one. This is the low Earth orbit, and just for you to understand it, it is a small snapshot of a OneWeb satellite system which is becoming operative in India by October or November, next month. It is already operative in the Americas. Just click this one. Okay, yeah. Now this is the reusable rocket. Just look at it. To send a rocket up itself was high-end technology. But now this rocket is precisely landing on a ship. See how it will land on a ship after it goes up to the topmost point. See what it is landing on precisely. This is what, and this has not been achieved by any military, but a private entrepreneur called Elon Musk. Next. Go ahead. What has happened in India? And this has just happened in 2 years. Firstly, PSLV, which is called the workhorse or the launch vehicle, which has done more than 50 flights for India successfully, is now being manufactured by private players. It will be manufactured by HAL and L&T together. And by next April, the next PSLV which is going to be launched will be privately made. Coming to Skyroot. This is a company which was made, just came up, a startup in 2018. Last year in November, they have launched a suborbital rocket. The rocket has gone to nearly 80 to 90 kilometers. And this year, by the end of this year or early next year, they are going to have the orbital launch of the Vikram rockets. This is happening in India. And all their parts and components, which are very modern, have been manufactured by suppliers in India. There's a company called Agnikul, which has been there at IIT Chennai. They are going to make the first 3D printed rocket engine. The complete engine is being 3D printed, not components. And as we know, their flight most probably will go in the month of December. If this happens, this is a disruption in technology which would have started in India. Next. Of course, 72 satellites of OneWeb were launched by ISRO in India. And there are these three companies, Digantara, Pixel, Dhruva. All three of them, Indian startups, have launched satellites. Pixel is a company which will be launching 36 satellites constellation for the world. And they've already got an order from NRO, that is the National Recce Office of USA. This has just happened after space was opened to private sector in 2020. Go ahead. Go ahead. Now, while this was happening in the private sector, what happened in the military was this. Gulf War was the first time when space was actually used for a war. And, there was Colonel Dupuy who used to make estimates of what are the ratios required to win a war. And the ratios had hard power, number of tanks, number of aircrafts, number of artillery pieces, factors like surprise, intelligence, and whatever. But if they were all compared for the Iraqi war, the war should have been won by the Iraqis. And all of us know it did not happen. And why? Because of technology. A dimension where USA was far superior. And one of the technologies they used was space. And when space was used there, that is the time in China also, they decided to carry out a new, they looked at that war very seriously. And that is when they seriously started going into bridging the gap in technology between them and the USA. And they have gone pretty far on it. Of course, in recent time, the ASAT is a weapon, anti-satellite weapon, which was produced by China in 2017. And we in India also had a test in 2019. Now, what Ukraine war was very unique, where space has been used. Go ahead, please, to the next slide. Firstly, the Ukraine war as such started with war in space, where all the satellite terminals in Europe were neutralized by Russia. That happened, and it gave an indication that space assets were easy targets. But when communication of Ukraine was totally neutralized by Russia, it was Starlink with more than 2,000 receivers, satellite receivers, a private company in America which has provided communication for the Ukraine war. And a private player providing a low Earth constellation has been the new dimension in war. Similarly, many of the imageries, if you have seen of the Ukraine war, they have been provided by commercial companies like Maxar and Planet M. They have been available in the open source, and of course to Ukraine to get a better picture of what was happening in war. Okay, next. I'll go to the next slide, please. I'll just go to what and where military space is used. After the gap is what are the new usages, and before the gap are what has been the use of by all armed forces all over the world for a very long time. Recce, communication, navigation, meteorology, and ballistic defense. Please go to the next slide. This is what has happened, change in ISR. There are now multiple sensors. From just electro-optical, they have become IR, SAR, hyperspectral, and whatever. The revisit time is previously, and when we did our nuclear blasts, it used to take a day for a satellite to come over India. Now, Chinese satellite see the South China Sea, every 12 minutes there is a revisit. That is the kind of revisit which has been achieved in the world, and we would require in India. Now we are talking of responsive launches. As soon as a war is there, has taken place, we have a hotspot, say as Galwan, we can launch a certain number of satellites to get insight into what is happening there. Of course, in PNT today, navigation, missile guidance, and here we as India have a problem. Though we have a NAVIC system, our weapon systems have not been aligned to NAVIC. Next, go ahead. I'll finish here and take other things during the question hour and not take the whole issue, sir. Thank you, gentlemen.
Can you hear me? Yeah, now it's okay. Thank you so much, General Bhatt. So now we turn to the last but not the least speaker for this session, and that is Lieutenant General Dr. Anil Kapoor. Now, why I say not the least is because his last assignment while in service was Director General EME. And for those who do not know, all these NCC cadets, electrical and mechanical engineers, that looks at just about every technology which is inducted into the Indian Army. So, and before that, he's also held the prestigious appointment of Director General of Information Systems, which manages the information systems as well as digital transformation for the entire army. He's had UN missions in Angola and Sudan. And post-retirement as DG Amity, he's established the Amity Institute of Defense Technology. And presently, he is Professor of Practice at IIT Tirupati, as also the Manipal Institute of Technology. So no better person than him to close our session as the final speaker. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Chair, fellow panelists, august audience, vibrant NCC students, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by 4 Indian stories of success with startups I had the privilege to be a part of. The first story is on artificial intelligence. The window is 2018-2020. We wanted to do satellite imagery interpretation, and we thought, let's make an AI platform. And one of these startups came up to us who was actually having an AI platform to identify early cancer cells by analyzing blood reports. And the same platform we used for satellite imagery interpretation for military targets, objects and installations of importance in satellite imagery. It was a challenge, but time is short. I'll just cut it here. And then when COVID happened in 2020, this same platform was used in hospitals using imagery in the wards to actually do COVID crisis management in hospital wards, where doctors and healthcare specialists would actually sometimes shudder to enter. So really speaking, what we found was that AI is a platform and AI is a service. Good lesson from artificial intelligence. Story 2. Having foreclosed battlefield management system, the question asked to me was, what next? And I found that Research, Design and Standards Organization of the Railways and Space Application Center of ISRO had taken up a joint project to actually look at unmanned level crossings to create an accident-free environment using NAVIC receivers. And this technology was adopted by us and demonstrated in an independent armored brigade to actually do battlefield management system, a project which was costing 350 crores on paper, about 2,500 crores as a pilot, was done in less than 1 lakh rupees, make in India. And therefore, there is a need to look at national R&D. There is a need to look at duality in technology. 2 lessons here. Third story. Some of you and my friends and co-mates sitting here from the Armored Corps have huge issues with tank engines, and rightly so, because that is the power horse of the tank in the field. We used a torsion vibration sensor which would churn out 1 million pieces of data every minute to give you the health of the power pack, right from every gasket, engine oil, filters, and the host. And all was done on a big data analytics platform using artificial intelligence and giving to the user and to the maintenance agencies a dashboard, the traffic light dashboard, greens, ambers, and red. And obviously, when it is red, you better take care. And don't do it before that. And when we use this technology, a 600 odd hours, which would raise hackles for the Armored Corps commanders, actually gave us 1,100 hours in the field. And therefore, we have to drift using technology from periodic preventive maintenance, which is our forte, to predictive, prescriptive maintenance through reliability-centric technology infusion. Story number 4. In the eastern Ladakh, when we inducted tanks, there's a problem of visibility beyond the mountains. And therefore, we put tethered quadcopters, because a quadcopter there, driven by battery, would hardly give 20 to 25 minutes of endurance. And this platform became a lethal platform, which not only gave you situational awareness, it also helped you put a variety of payloads on the tethered quadcopter. And therefore, real-time situational awareness was no longer a mystery. And looking beyond the horizon and looking beyond the obvious, technology gives you the bandwidth. And therefore, the lesson here is that technology and innovation with small ideas can actually create a huge impact. Right. May I have the slide, please? Okay. Now the topic is man versus machine, and I agree with the General Khandare. Actually, it is man augmented by machine, which has always happened. And I'll quickly walk through this busy slide in about 2 minutes. Okay. The new tech world order is defined by 4 Ds: data, digitization, digitalization, and disruption. And today, revolution is being disrupted every moment. Every war is different. Every industry is different. And in the words of Steve Jobs, when you start connecting the dots back, you find that actually you started with the future in mind and not the past in mind. And therefore, when we look at shaping the future defense industry, I think it is very pertinent to look at the technology stack: IoT, sensors, geospatial technologies, big data analytics, cloud and AI platforms, augmented virtual realities and meta, blockchain, quantum technologies, unmanned autonomous system, be they in the air, on ground, underwater, or seabeds. Nanotechnologies, General Bhatt spoke of miniaturization. I think nanomaterials and nanoenergizers is the way forward. There is no other way. Digital twins, additive manufacturing, 3D printing, and the like. And all this gives you 4 watchwords for the future: automation, autonomy, precision, and positioning, which is the key to all future applications, be it defense, be it otherwise. I'd not like to highlight challenges because they are known to the audience here. Let me get to the opportunities. First, let's think tri-service. I think it's time to think together. We are talking of integrated theater commands. I think there's a need to create and curate technology together. Because when you look at guided missile systems, unmanned systems, communication, ICT, aviation, drones, space, cyber, I don't think they have silos or boundaries. They are without boundaries. Power management, it's all common. And therefore, that's the first thought. The second is think life cycle sustenance support. Technology today is on the gallop. When we were young, it was walking, it got into a trot. Now I have Vikram Tewatia, my coursemate, sitting here, who's a good rider, and the technology is on the trot. So therefore, it's on the gallop, and we need to think life cycle. How do we look at technology? We need to shift in this life cycle maintenance from periodic preventive to predictive prescriptive. I mentioned to you the torsion vibration story. Right. Now we talked of large number of platforms, large number of sensors. Just 1 more minute. And we need to have multi-platform, multi-sensor data fusion. I must tell you, we did it, we tried it at a point in time. Different sensors, different platforms. 2 tanks were seen as 8 because we had 4 of them, 4 such platforms. So really, data fusion is very important, lest you get the wrong inputs. And therefore, it takes me to big data analytics, dashboards, very important, and a decision support system. And today, the world is looking at, especially China is looking at C7ISR: command, control, communication, computer, cyber, cognition, and combat. decision support. So that is the thing that we have to aim at. So that said, what are the top 6 trends for defense industry? Because we have to shape the defense industry. First is, let's humanize assets. And when I say humanizing assets, we are looking at digitizing them through the technology stack that I spoke about. We need to look at human-machine interface, human-computer interface, machine-to-machine interface, machine-to-infrastructure interface, machine-to-network interfaces, and they are easy to go by. We should look at infrastructure as a service, product as a service, platform as a service, and AI as a service. No longer problem statement oriented. We need to look at robo-mules for logistics as much as robo-humanoids for ground-based, technology-driven solution of humanized assets. So that is one big ticket for industry to look at the future. The second is, we should look at future-ready equipment. What is a future-ready equipment? It's not just a tank. It's actually a system of systems. We need to look at a manned, unmanned kind of a system which can operate together. And therefore, the technology stack I've already conveyed through tethered drone, through variety of ICT payloads, through swarms, through condition monitoring systems. At any point in time, you should know what is where precisely in terms of position and condition. So that is where the future warfare is all about. Today, when you take Ukraine war, you take the present war going on, the huge problem is precise information, real-time situational awareness, and a common operating picture. I think this is the landscape when industry should look at a future-ready equipment. Any new equipment should actually easily integrate through a hub and spoke, and it is doable. The bigger challenge, number 3, is managing legacy. All of us know that we are carrying equipment which is almost 50 years dated in terms of technology. And that's a great opportunity for our industry, more so because with Russia, Ukraine having collapsed, which were actually the mainstay of your legacy, today the industry can rise to this requirement. And when we talk of this, we are looking at life cycle sustenance support, which I talked of, and MRO is a big opportunity. If we were to talk of data, it was a $700 billion business in 2021, out of which India did $2 billion. By 2030, it's going to be a $900 billion industry. And India, as per Niti Aayog report, is targeting 10. Imagine the delta. So that is where we have to shape our industry to go, not only in India and abroad. The 5th shape is the engine. I call it the engine. Industry must look at strategic partnerships, joint ventures, academia industry partnership. It's a must. I'm a board member on the Technology Innovation Hub. Industries come to you when there's a seminar. That is not the time. The engine is adopt Technology Innovation Hub. Adopt so many innovation incubation centers. Adopt the Atal Incubation Innovation Centers. They have to be adopted because they are students who don't have experience and you have practitioners who have the experience. This bridge has to be created. And that's the big change where industry should look at when it looks at itself in the future. The Japanese industry today is going into something called IA to IA, industrial automation to industrial autonomy. The capability and capacity requirements of war may be profound, and we've seen it. Russia, with the best of industries, actually crumbled when it came to creating a surge because it is man behind the machine. I think IA to IA is the next 6th big ticket industry must use. And with this, I'd wrap up with 2 thoughts of whole of nation approach which General Khandare alluded to. First is, we need to have a national technology strategy. Nothing without it. A lot of things are happening, a lot of missions are launched. I don't know where they are, but unless you have a technology strategy with a proper structure, things will not happen. And second is, we have to look at a national R&D organization. I gave you an example of just RDSO and Indian Army and ISRO, how we created the next BMS at 1 lakh against so many crores. The fact is, we need to create a national R&D organization. with private, public, academia integrated, and it is doable today. If we can do a UPI on the edge, I think we can do a national R&D with edge to depth. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan Kapoor. Can I still have two questions from the audience? I've got two control signals already from the organizers. Can I? Just one. Okay, I'll stretch it to two. These questions are open only to the youngsters, with due deference to the senior lot sitting here and the experts sitting here. No, that's not youngster enough. So somebody from here, people sitting in uniform, NCC or others? Okay, there you are. Yeah. You'll have to speak louder.
Louder. So my question is to Air Marshal, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, don't you think that the changes we are talking about, using machines, especially in Air Force involvement, equipped with AI, would lead to more disastrous effects or loss of life? I mean, if we equipped AI with Air Force, this would lead to like more disastrous effect, don't you think? What are your thoughts, sir?
AI is considered as an enabler. It is not the end all and everything. AI will be utilized along with the existing systems, and it will further enhance the capability what we have. The man in the loop will always remain. What sir mentioned about natural intelligence and artificial intelligence, it has to be a mix of both these things. So it's a combination to enhance the capability and will not lead to any losses in that manner.
We have seen the war. Air Force is like, so compared to machines and man, like Air Force is more disastrous, don't you think, sir? Like, if we airstrike an area, the damage will be like infrastructure, lives, etc., etc. If we are fighting man to man, or we are excluding machines, then the impact will be less, don't you think?
Okay, when you look at a warfare scenario, it is the objectives which will get driven down from the national objective, the military strategy, then the armed forces special objectives. And based on these objectives, the missions are planned. And they are planned to carry out a particular effect out of the environment, which is expected to meet your objectives. From that perspective, when you look at it, is a combined system with subsystems embedded with the entire area. And AI is one of the subsystems which is facilitated, which facilitates the UDALO, facilitates the conduct of mission and all. So from that perspective, I don't think it adds to destruction, it is an enabler. And this enabling operations or the effect-based operations are towards the overall objectives which are planned at the national level and the services level.
So India is
Okay, no, please, no follow-up questions.
We'll discuss later during tea time.
Only one
Thank
more?
you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, since you are persistent, I'll take the question from here.
Morning, sirs. This is Sagnik Sarkar. I'm a final year student at AFMC Pune. So my question would be regarding AUVs. So we have seen the military effectiveness of autonomous underwater vehicles in Sevastopol and Novorossiysk. Also the non-military, the non-kinetic applications like General Khandare said, deep sea mining, as well as targeting deep sea cables. So my question to you, sirs, is what are we doing to counter this threat from the autonomous underwater vehicles, the so-called underwater drones?
All kinds of threats, whether they are for land, air or sea, there is always a counter policy towards that. Now, if you want me to unveil that on a platform which is being telecast live, I won't do that. But you meet me separately, I will tell you. And there are foolproof provisions which have been made for the underwater domain security part. And same is the case whether it is counter drone, whether it is counter air, provisions are made. Just trust the people who are handling these things. There are provisions and there are good provisions made at that. So don't let any fear trouble you towards that.
So thank you so much. I think with that we come to the end of this session. I thank all the speakers and of course the patient listening by the audience. And I've really enjoyed this session. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your valuable insights.